Here is Immortal Moments for explanation. Friends, like videos and subscribes to our channel. Martial Universe Season 10 Part 88 Explanation. So let's start our explanation. The sky above Chaotic Demon Sea was magnificent. Bright colors had enveloped the entire Chaotic Demon Sea for an entire year. Even the sun and moon seemed to have lost their brilliance under this light. Extremely mystical fluctuations secretly pulsated as the light circulated. Chaotic Demon Sea was still overflowing with people. Their eyes were all focused on the sky, where a giant and incomparably gorgeous ice lotus was present. It was tightly shut while seemingly every color was emitted from it. It was the apex of beauty. Every gaze was anxiously glued to the gorgeous ice lotus. After the Ice Master had ignited her reincarnation and used all of her power to aid Lindong into reaching the Ancestor stage, he became the final hope of the countless of lives in this world. Darkness was approaching in a pressuring manner from the far-away sky while their eyes were anxiously fixed on the brilliant ice lotus. 100,000 feet large crack was spreading in the void as extremely dense evil chi continued to surge from it. There was an ancient formation in front of the crack. However, this formation had already become extremely dim, and was clearly on the verge of breaking. Even some peak experts could vaguely sense that a certain figure of destruction was about to arrive. Countless individuals quietly looked at each other, and saw the unconcealable horror in each other's eyes. The Yimo Emperor is about to descend. The Life-Death Master also lifted her head. Her small face gravely observed the changes in the distant void as she slowly remarked. But Lindong has not come out yet. The Flame Master glanced at the tightly shut brilliant ice lotus. Other than continuously emitting multicolored radiance, there was no other activity from it over the past month. They were even unable to detect Lindong's presence. We cannot care about such matters. Little junior sister ignited her reincarnation in order to create this chance. We must not waste it. A stern expression flashed across the Life-Death Master's eyes as she decisively said, "We will attack with all our strength once the Yimo Emperor descends. We will stop him for as long as possible." The Flame Master and the others nodded with solemn faces. Regardless of the situation, they would do their best to help Lindong gain that urgently needed time. Rumble. Deep demonic thunder seemed to rumble from the distant void, as evil ripple began to truly invade this world. Countless pairs of eyes were anxiously focused on the sky. After which, they began to tremble. They had seen the seal outside the crack begin to burn. Black flames had glued themselves to the seal. The seal seemed to release a deafening noise at this moment. The final gate guarding the plane had finally reached the end of its mission. Crack. The seal cracked open, and ultimately completely disappeared. One could see a 1,000,000 feet large crack between the planes slowly squirming where the seal had vanished. It appeared like the large mouth of an evil demon that had started to gnaw at this world. The surging demonic chi was so viscous that it seemed to have almost become solid. It surged out from the crack between the planes. In an instant, the sun and moon lost their light. Bang! Demonic chi spread over the world. There seemed to be an extremely pair of evil eyes present within it. It indifferently swept over this world, seemingly attempting to search for the beautiful figure who had forced him back a month ago. The result of his search caused him to be somewhat surprised. He had discovered that particular presence appeared to have completely disappeared from this world, and even he could not detect it. The gaze sweeping over the world suddenly looked towards Chaotic Demon Sea, where brilliant light spread in the sky in the middle of an endless sea of people. That somewhat familiar light caused the evil eyes to tighten slightly. It was an extremely familiar and dangerous fluctuation. Humph! A cold and indifferent snort was emitted from the demonic chi. Soon after, the countless experts in Chaotic Demon Sea were shocked to see an extremely thick demonic chi light pillar suddenly rush downwards from the void. It tore through the sky and ruthlessly shot towards the brilliant ice lotus at the middle of the colorful light. Attack! The expressions of the 6 ancient masters drastically changed upon seeing this. With a stern cry, the 6 of them rushed forward and hovered in the air above the ice lotus. Ugh! They powerfully slammed their own chests, and a mouthful of essence blood was spat out. Their expressions paled as 6 clusters of essence blood suddenly merged together. Bright light accompanied by a frightening ripple swept apart. Light spread, turning into a large ancient bell. The giant bell completely covered both them and the ice lotus. Dawn! Demonic light penetrated space and arrived, heavily smashing onto the giant bell. A clear chime resounded across the sky. Circular sonic waves, which were visible to the naked eye, caused the surrounding experts to be blown backwards. Crack! The giant bell defense, which was formed from the full power of the 6 individuals, did not manage to achieve much of an effect. Many cracks swiftly spread over the huge bell. Finally, it emitted a loud bang and was completely blasted apart. Ugh! 6 figures flew backwards when the large bell exploded, and a mouthful of fresh blood was coughed out. Their originally pale faces turned even paler, and their auras became extremely frail. Although they were already considered peak-level experts in this world, there was still far too big of a gap when compared with the Yimo Emperor. Although they had suffered a serious injury, they ultimately managed to block this attack of the Yimo Emperor. An icy expression seemed to flit across the evil eyes in the distant void, and demonic chi surged once again. Surging demonic chi arrived. Everyone could clearly feel the figure of destruction that had stepped across the plains was now swiftly approaching them. Swoosh! Viscous demonic chi once again shot forward, turning into a giant demonic finger that blasted apart the void and ruthlessly thrust towards the brilliant ice lotus. Evil symbols flickered at the demonic fingertips. Let's attack together! Countless strong individuals in chaotic demon sea saw the Yimo Emperor's attack arrive once again. After feeling extremely terrified, all of them began to feel a great fury. Lindong was their final hope. If he was hindered or destroyed by the Yimo Emperor here, it would mean that they would lose their last resistance. Such a scene must never appear. Scarlet rose in the eyes of the countless powerful individuals. Subsequently, roars rang out one after another, and tens of millions of yuan power pillars shot forth. The entire chaotic demon sea trembled wildly at this moment. Bang bang bang. Countless attacks crazily smashed onto the demonic finger, causing it to violently tremble. However, the far-off Yimo Emperor clearly detected this situation. With a cold snort, the evil symbols on the demonic finger suddenly erupted and blocked all of the attacks. After which, it ruthlessly smashed towards the brilliant ice lotus without weakening. Ignite reincarnation and stop him. The eyes of the Life-Death Master turned red upon seeing this. With a stern cry, both of her hands suddenly formed a seal. She was planning on directly igniting her reincarnation. They had no other choice at this moment. Swoosh! However, the space above the ice lotus suddenly distorted just as they were prepared to fight to their deaths, and a white-cloaked figure appeared from out of nowhere. The figure had an aloof demeanor. Her pretty face was covered in frost at this moment. She looked at the demonic finger headed her way, and clenched her hand, as a 3-foot-long sword appeared in a flash. Wielding the long sword, she ferociously slashed downwards. The sword slash did not give off any yuan power fluctuations. It was a strike that seemingly did not contain any power at all. Crack! However, this seemingly powerless slash directly passed through that terrifying demonic finger. After which, countless individuals were shocked to see that the demon finger had actually been slashed into two. Clamor! The entire chaotic demon sea erupted into an uproar. Countless individuals were stunned as they looked at the fairy-like beauty in white. It was clear that they did not understand just who this person, who had suddenly appeared and seemed to be even stronger than the ancient masters, was. Ling Qingzhu! The ancient masters exclaimed. They were very startled when they saw this scene. Why has she become so strong? The spatial master asked in shock. He could sense that there was no yuan power in Ling Qingzhu's. However, they could detect a familiar ancient fluctuation from her. It is the power of the zenith. The Life-Death Master answered in a solemn manner. She stared at the figure and muttered, "She is actually able to use the power of the zenith to such an extent? How terrifying!" In terms of understanding and control of the zenith, it is likely that even little junior sister is inferior. She has given up on every other kind of power, and focused on chasing after the power of the zenith. This boldness is something that even we cannot match. The Flame Master nodded and said, "This little fellow Lin Dong is really impressive. Both Ling Qingzhu and little junior sister are extremely talented ladies. Yet, both of them have fallen for this fellow. Impressive, impressive." The Spatial Master smacked his lips. His tone contained a great admiration. However, his words only made the others roll their eyes. "However, I'm afraid that even Ling Qingzhu cannot stop the Yimo Emperor. The Yimo Emperor has already pierced through the crack between the planes, and will soon arrive. At that time, his power strength would be truly unleashed," the Life-Death Master said in a worried voice. The Flame Master and the rest sighed. After which, they looked at the magnificent Ice Lotus. They could only hope that Lin Dong would be able to break out of the seal, and truly advance to the Ancestor stage in the little time that remained. Otherwise, the world would truly fall into the hands of the Yimo Emperor. The moment the demonic figure was sliced into two, an astonishing light suddenly erupted from the evil eyes in the distant void. He seemed to look past space as his gaze fell upon the beautiful white figure. His originally emotionless and indifferent voice seemed to have been shaken a little, and it seemed to contain a trace of joy. Has this power finally appeared once again? A gorgeous and alluring figure wearing a white dress stood in the sky above the chaotic demon sea. Meanwhile, she was holding a 3-feet-long sword in her hand. Her long black hair fell to her narrow waist. At this moment, as she stared intently at the distant void, there was a cold and rarely seen stern expression on her perfect and flawless face. This was because at that spot, a terrifying pressure was moving rapidly towards them. The Yimo Emperor was about to arrive. Ling Qingzhu tightened the grip over her long sword, before she curled her red lips. Soon after, she lowered her head and glanced at the countless frightened and despairing eyes below. Then, she turned to look at that dazzling Ice Lotus. Promptly, a gentle emotion rose within her cold and clear eyes. "In the past, you have always been the one chasing after me. This time around, allow me to protect you." Following which, she increased the grip over her long sword, causing her delicate veins to protrude on her fair jade-like skin. Meanwhile, a determined glint flashed across her stunning face. Countless individuals were staring at that gorgeous figure standing in the sky. A gentle breeze blew over, causing her long hair to flutter with the wind. Her cold and elegant disposition was similar to that of a fairy, and left one mesmerized. Rumble. The low and deep devil thunder rumbling grew closer and closer. Following which, demonic aura, which looked just like storm clouds, descended from above the sky. Finally, in front of countless terrified pairs of eyes, they spread across the sky of the chaotic demon sea. Meanwhile, deep within the churning demonic aura, there seemed to be a pair of diabolical eyes looking coldly at the entire world. Finally, that pair of eyes paused on Ling Qingzhu's delicate and lovely figure. Such familiar strength. A cold and indifferent voice was slowly emitted from deep within the devil clouds. Moreover, it seemed as though that voice was that of a devil from the depths of hell. It was completely void of emotion. Instead, a terrifying strength, which caused the entire world to tremble in fear, radiated from it. Yimo Emperor. The Life-Death Masters group stared at the devil clouds that covered the sky, with a pale expression on their faces. Meanwhile, they could faintly spot a demonic aura throne. Moreover, seated on that throne, was a devil godlike figure. However, no one could discern his looks. What a nostalgic place. However, it seems like that symbol Ancestor fellow is no longer around. How unfortunate. A frightening pressure spread across the world as that voice slowly sounded. Promptly, he smirked. There seemed to be a hint of ridicule in his smirk. That fellow, we clearly had the same goal. Yet, he insisted on taking the so-called righteous path. Forget about it. In the end, I won. That man was laughing gently. Soon after, he turned his attention away from Ling Qingzhu and looked at the dazzling Ice Lotus instead. Immediately, his diabolical eyes, which were nested within the demon aura, hardened before he said, attempting to break into the Ancestor stage? It seems like I have indeed underestimated the living beings in this world. However, I'm afraid there is no way I will give you such an opportunity. Bang! After his words sounded, the demonic aura in the sky suddenly surged. Immediately, viscous demonic aura swiftly gathered together, before it transformed into a huge cluster of black flames. The flames curled and rose. In fact, even the empty space itself continuously released a cracking sound, as if it was being grilled. Meanwhile, endless evil seemed to be coursing within these flames. Swoosh! The black flames wiggled, before they faintly transformed into the face of a ferocious ghost. After which, the devil flames whizzed forward before they headed straight for the dazzling ice lotus. Swish! Ling Qingzhu's delicate figure moved, before she instantly appeared in front of the dazzling ice lotus. Meanwhile, her stunning face was filled with an icy cold expression. Suddenly, waves of primal chaos light swept out from within her body. After the primal chaos light erupted, the entire world seemingly roared in unison, as endless amounts of natural power began to converge manically. Zenith, slay the devil! Ling Qingzhu used her jade-like hand to hold her 3-feet-long sword, before she swung it down. She did not employ any fancy techniques. However, as she swung her sword, it actually left a several 100,000 feet large deep gully on the chaotic demon sea below. A primal chaos sword glow whistled past, before it finally slashed against the frightening devil flames, which looked just like the face of a ghost. Immediately, the latter released a deafening miserable screech, and it was actually stopped by that ordinary-looking sword glow. However, as the devil flames raged, they continuously eroded the primal chaos light. You are actually able to make use of that strength till this extent. Indeed, it does seem to favor those that come from this world. The devil godlike figure nested deep within the devil cloud sighed emotionally after witnessing this scene. However, this is way lacking. After his voice sounded, the devil flames, which were in the shape of a ghost's face, suddenly released a piercing screech. Immediately, the devil flames soared in all directions, forcing the primal chaos sword glow to retreat continuously. Meanwhile, the primal chaos light also became increasingly dim. Ling Qingzhu was biting her red lips with the back of her teeth. Meanwhile, some sweat had appeared on her smooth forehead, while a pale expression flashed across her gorgeous face. Although she went down another path which allowed her to possess unique and formidable strength, there was hardly anything she could do when up against the Yimo Emperor, who had descended personally into this world. Right now, his absolute and overpowering strength was something that she could not contend with. Hiss! The ferocious ghost-faced devil flames suddenly screeched. Then, it widened its huge mouth before it swallowed the primal chaos sword glow. Immediately, Ling Qingzhu's body shook before a trace of blood seeped out from the corner of her mouth. However, she forcefully endured it. Standing below, the Life-Death Masters group had a drastic change in their expressions when they saw this scene. It seems like they were indeed unable to stop him. You should be useful to me. Let me capture you first. Within the devil clouds, the devil godlike figure gave a faint smile. Following which, he extended his arm. Immediately, a humongous pale hand extended out from within the devil clouds before it attempted to grab Ling Qingzhu. As that pale hand descended, a whine erupted, as though the world was unable to bear that burden. The space around Ling Qingzhu was completely sealed at this moment, causing her to be stuck. However, even in a precarious situation like this, she did not panic. Instead, she merely inhaled a deep breath of air while the determination in her eyes grew denser. Ling Qingzhu gently placed her long hands together. After which, she formed an extremely ancient seal technique. As this seal was formed, everyone could hear a buzzing sound erupt from the entire world. Swoosh swoosh! Many primal chaos light rays shot out from different parts of the world. Finally, they enveloped Ling Qingzhu's delicate figure. Meanwhile, after those rays of light enveloped her body, several ancient lines actually appeared on her crystal-like skin. These lines were just like the lines of the world, divine yet natural. An intense primal chaos light began to surge out from within Ling Qingzhu's body. Meanwhile, her surrounding space, which had imprisoned her initially, began to loosen their grip. Finally, that large pale hand, which was attempting to grab her, was also blocked by the primal chaos light. However, this resistance was only a temporary solution. Immediately, the black devil veins on that large pale hand began to wiggle like dragons, before they began to force back the primal chaos light. Two frightening strengths clashed in the sky. However, everyone could tell that the primal chaos light was about to be extinguished. The Life-Death Masters group clenched their fists tightly, and they were prepared to act at any time. However, they knew that once they made a move, they had to ignite their reincarnation. Otherwise, there was no way they could contend with the Yimo Emperor. But under that large pale hand, the primal chaos light became increasingly dim. In fact, it was pushed back continuously until it was only 100 feet away from Ling Qingzhu. When she saw this, she secretly sighed in her heart. Following which, without hesitation, her body, which was covered with ancient lines, began to turn scorching hot. Meanwhile, intense pain spread across her entire body. Swoosh! At this moment, the primal chaos light, which was being bitterly suppressed previously, began to push back at a frightening rate. In fact, it even pushed back that large pale hand until it began to tremble. Meanwhile, the crowd saw that the primal chaos light around Ling Qingzhu's body was becoming increasingly intense. After which, it appeared as though the entire world had begun to tremble. Is she planning to? When the ancient masters saw this scene, they were all shocked. Clearly, they realized that Ling Qingzhu was using a self-sacrificial method, similar to igniting one's reincarnation, to fight the Yimo Emperor. Are we doomed to sacrifice ourselves one after another? Helplessness surged in their hearts as they glanced at each other. Ling Qingzhu slowly shut her eyes. At this moment, she could sense that her body had merged with the entire world. Therefore, as long as she activated the next step, she would be able to unleash her greatest strength and stop the Yimo Emperor, buying some precious time for Lin Dong. Lin Dong, goodbye. A low and deep mutter sounded within Ling Qingzhu's heart. After which, her hand seal changed. However, just as she was about to unleash the strength within her body, a resplendent glow suddenly erupted in this world. Under the illumination of that resplendent glow, Ling Qingzhu suddenly felt that another frightening strength had forced her out of her current state, whereby she was merged with the world. Right after she was forced out from that state, a familiar scent greeted her. Following which, a powerful arm wrapped around her delicate waist before he pulled her into his embrace. Don't do that. I don't want to experience that pain for a second time, all right? He pulled her into his embrace and muttered. Meanwhile, there was pain in his voice which could not be concealed. At this moment, that familiar scent and voice caused even Ling Qingzhu's calm lake-like heart to tremble. She slowly lifted her head and looked at that face. In merely 1 month, his dark black eyes had become a lot older and deeper. In fact, it appeared as though he had went through thousands of reincarnations. Leave everything else to me. Behind Lin Dong, the dazzling light, which permeated the sky, was still flowing in all directions. Then, he looked at Ling Qingzhu, before he gave a faint smile and said, I? Ling Qingzhu's delicate tensed-up body promptly relaxed, before she quickly nodded. Below them, the chaotic demon sea erupted into an uproar. Countless individuals stared at Lin Dong, who had finally showed up, before wild joy rose on their faces. Has their wait finally paid off? Did he succeed? The ancient masters stared at Lin Dong, before all their hearts shuddered. With shock in their eyes, they turned to look at each other, before they realized that while they were all in shock, there was unconcealable joy on their faces as well. This was because they realized that the fluctuation given off by Lin Dong's body was exactly the same as that of the symbol Ancestor. Evidently, he had advanced to the Ancestor stage. There is hope for this world. Standing in the sky, Lin Dong released Ling Qingzhu. Then, he lifted his head and looked deep into the devil clouds. Finally, a faint smile appeared as he said, "The great Yimo Emperor has arrived. On behalf of every living being in this world, allow me to apologize for the wait." In the sky, the whistling demonic aura was now being suppressed by the dazzling light, and it subsequently became quieter. After which, a devil light descended, before a black figure gradually appeared within the devil light. Finally, that light disappeared before a human figure appeared in front of the eyes of countless individuals. That figure was that of a human. He was wearing black robes and he was fairly tall and handsome. However, Lin Dong's eyes narrowed gently when he saw his face. This was because he recognized that face. In fact, one could even say that that face was imprinted deep within his mind. This was because that face was in fact that of Lin Langqian's. This episode ends here.